Are you looking for a life of freedom and flexibility? Do you want to have as much success with your family as you do in business? Here in the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast, we break down the barriers and bust the myths that are keeping you from living your best life at home and at work. You deserve a thriving family, rich faith, and business success. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Entrepreneurial Family Man. This is Chris, and we got Jamie and Michael here today with us.
Hey.
We're looking
Welcome.
forward. The guys are here. The Rat Pack is back.
Yeah. What are we talking about today, Chris?
Man, we're going to talk about a topic that I think we have all dealt with and fortunately are working through together. And this group of guys right here is testimony to it. But we're going to talk about not being a lone wolf, okay? Jim Rohn has a famous quote we've all probably heard, but it's worth mentioning here that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so, guys, relationships matter. Who you spend your time with totally influences your mind, your business, your actions. And so we're talking about a small group of buddies, some business people, some kind of masterminding together. Today, we just want to talk about why not to go alone and why to link arms with other people. And we've talked together as friends here. There's this awesome African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others. So I want to kick this off, guys. Let's just dive in here. I mean, first of all, why not go alone? Why not go alone in life and business?
Oh my goodness. Loaded question here. Well, let me start by saying this. Is there not this ideal, this American ideal that a true successful man is self-made? He does it all by himself. He bears down, figures it out. He's got all the answers, this quiet confidence. I don't know who started this thing. John Wayne, maybe? One of those mysterious, stoic faces who convinced us all that we needed to figure it out on our own. Can we just say that is a bunch of BS? Absolutely not true. Does not work. It's impossible. That is a figment of somebody's imagination. We need guys around us. We need people in our life who we're open with, who are authentic with, who we can share our lives with, share our struggles with, bleed together, fail and learn with. I mean, gosh, we need that desperately as men.
Absolutely. Man, for me, I just see that sometimes I have a tendency to isolate myself, and I just get in this, what Zig Ziglar calls stinking thinking. It's like a closed machine, right? There's nothing going in, nothing going out. Like the fungus starts growing on the lake if it doesn't have an input or an output, right?
Yeah.
Sounds gross.
Yeah.
Fungus on the lake.
Yeah. A lake, maybe a pond, right? A pond that's not spring fed, right? And so just this idea of, we all have heard these stories about these little groups that are cults and they like move to the mountains and do things the way that they all think is right. Those stories usually don't end well, right?
Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
one of those things holding us back, though, I think is, as men especially, we want to feel strong. We want to feel confident. And the thought of being real with another group of guys puts that facade that we've built up at risk, right? Because what if somebody finds out who we really are? How humiliating would that be? I think that has kept me from engaging with other men on a deeper level. And I think it holds a lot of guys back from doing life with other guys.
Yeah, being vulnerable as a guy is sometimes not very natural, right? But Jamie, back to your pond and pond scum analogy. I was just thinking about this though. Like, that's a great example because if there's not an inlet and an outlet, you're going to stagnate, right? If you don't have guys helping you and speaking into your life and pointing out some flaws in your mindset or your actions or your habits, and then also being able to do the same and to outlet that to other guys, like you're gonna plateau, you're gonna stagnate, you're gonna maybe not grow to the extent that you could. And so that's a key thing. I mean, just yesterday, guys, so the three of us are in a mastermind together, and we talked about this in terms of, are there fatal flaws that we're barely aware of or not aware of? And if you don't have guys in your life to have the feedback, to learn from others, to grow, it's going to be hard to get to that next level as men.
Yeah, that's true. And I know that you guys probably relate to this, but I can see all the potential in others, and sometimes I don't see it in myself. And so when I alone in my business trying to struggle through, it's like I lose hope. Like I just need other people coming in and saying like, that's so cool how you do this or that, because it's like that quote, right? Like what's ordinary to you is extraordinary to other people. It's like we tend to not really value the things in ourselves. So we need other people to shine a light on that,
Yeah, no doubt. Great point, Jamie. And can we just talk about how we started out this call before we hit the record button?
Let's do it.
With the struggle that I was having, and I needed some perspective, and I needed to just talk it out. And you guys really helped me. Like that was so important. If I didn't have that in my life, like just constantly bounce things off my wife, which she's very helpful, but we need a voice beyond our marriage as well. And it's just so helpful and empowering and encouraging to have you guys in my life to have things to bounce off of. So thank you.
Virtual hug. That was good. It's so true. So true though. We've done that together. I mean, just being able to bounce those ideas off each other. And, we all hear, we've all been in Bible studies. Let's say we know the proverb of iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another. But, we were talking about this, right? Jamie, share with us about the difference here between what we're talking about versus just another Bible study, another guy's trip, another hunting buddy. I mean, what's the difference that we're talking about here?
Let's say this, that we're not against guys getting together, just throwing around a ball, going to a football game, shooting guns, just doing guy things. I think that's all healthy. But there is this tendency for you to kind of check a box to say, I'm good. Like I got people in my corner because we do this or that. But I mean, Michael and I, we were in this group for a while where we did something together, and it was kind of like a Bible study, kind of like a mastermind. I mean, it was really healthy because what we did was we got together and we shared, and it was open to anything. What didn't happen is that we were going through 8 weeks on a certain Bible scripture and studying it. And meanwhile, we were dying inside that we, I think there's just the ability to go to a Bible study or to connect with guys. And it's just not the right environment to bring up heavy things that you're stressed out on. As men, we need an outlet to have somebody else come along, put a hand on our shoulder and say, it's going to be all right. Oftentimes, a Bible study might not do that. Is that sacrilegious for me to say?
You heathen. How could you say that?
I'm looking for a lightning bolt to come down right now.
You just opened up a whole...
Just watching you dodge. Let's not misunderstand what Jamie's saying, because he did say it, so we want to emphasize this. We're not bashing Bible studies at all. Continue to be part of one. But there's something that we're talking about here that gets that to a whole nother level. And here's a flip side too, right? So if I can just share about my experience, the first probably 9 or 10 years of my entrepreneurial endeavors, besides like listening to people online, reading some books, I didn't have guys in my life that I could truly bounce some good ideas off of. And, a couple of years ago, I was accepted to this entrepreneurship program. And it was just a 12-week program sponsored by Goldman Sachs. We went out to Boston Baptist College, but they put us in these groups of students nationwide. And we had this core group of 40. And then beyond that, we had a core group of 6 people. And this is business focused. So this is kind of like the opposite of the Bible study. This is just a business focus. But for me, that was at my point in my business, it was life-changing in terms of being able to completely bounce ideas off of other business leaders and business owners that had similar issues. There were people in there from manufacturing and restaurants and me and tourism stuff. So seemingly we didn't have a whole lot in common, but we were able to really get deep on some topics and levels of business that was great. And it helped me to get out of that plateau that I was in and go to the next level. So for us, what we're talking about though is blending the the Bible study, the personal, the spiritual, the tug we have as entrepreneurs to grow, the talk about our family and all the stuff that's so important to us as a whole person. So how do you do that? It kind of leads us to point number 2 here in terms of time. Guys, how much time does this take? And how much time should we expect to invest in this kind of a group?
It's different for everybody, Chris. I think depending on, sometimes a group might magically come together in just a few months, but I think for the majority of groups, it takes a significant amount of time. And what I mean by that is you're looking at a year, 2 years of consistently getting together before you really reach that level of trust and authenticity and vulnerability. And it keeps getting deeper the longer that you spend time together if you're intentional about that. So it doesn't necessarily just happen if you meet. There has to be a level of commitment there and intentionality to go deeper and a willingness by everyone there to do that.
Yeah, Michael, you made a good point. It actually could throw things off when everybody comes together and says, hey, okay, we're going to all be authentic and real now. Like, let's go around in a circle and do it. It's like when you force it, it almost the opposite thing happens too, right? You talked a little bit about that earlier. Can you expand upon that a little bit, Michael?
Well, yeah. I mean, anything that is forced with guys, I mean, it's just most guys, especially if they're guys who want to invest in themselves, they tend to not want to be forced to do something. They like doing things the way they want to do them. And so I'll tell you what, if somebody comes to me and starts telling me, hey, you need to open up and you need to share about this and do this and that, I'm like, who are you and why should I trust you? And why would I share my whole life and open up my can to you? Because well,
that sounded kind of bad.
That sounded horrible.
Man, are we going to have to edit that one out or what?
Well, I don't know. We're big boys.
I was just going to talk about building trust and intimacy, but I think I'm going to skip that part.
Can we just not use the word?
Oh, man.
I remember one time, one of my friends, before we were close, he said that he wanted to move forward in a relationship with me. And I was like, could you just not use the word relationship like guys being friends? Just a little weird.
This is exactly what guys are afraid of happening. There's another point I want to bring up about that too, though. And this is a position I felt or found myself in often. You know, if you guys are entrepreneurs or you want to be entrepreneurs, you're probably leaders in one way or another. And you might find yourself in that position of leading groups, but not actually being in relationship. I know that was me, right? I started a Bible study, led it, and I could say, okay, that category in my life is all together because I meet with a bunch of guys every week and I'm real with them, but I'm leading it. I'm not the one that's opening up and really being a peer to those guys in a group too. So just because you're in a group and just because you're committed to it doesn't mean that you're actually engaging in it, especially if you're in that leadership position.
You could be a sheep in wolf's clothes.
Don't even start with that.
No, you could be, but that could be back to my point. It's like you could be a lone wolf and not even know it because you're like, I got guys in my life, like I lead that group, and but like you don't have those people that can call foul or say like, you know, it's like that. We talked a little bit about before about what is the best assessment to find out your blind spots. And I think a bunch of us agreed that it's a 360 review, which is the people around you notice things that you probably think are pretty normal.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, this brings up another thing where we're talking about, you guys talked about the man alive and lack of kind of a longer term alignment in many areas. So how do you make this time commitment something that is truly a commitment, you know, which kind of brings us to this next point of like, if it's going to take a year, 2 years, let's say, to go deep with guys, like what are some things that we need to be doing or thinking as entrepreneurial family men to go deep and commit to this process?
One thing that has been helpful for me in really starting to make these connections, these meaningful connections with other guys is to be working on something as you meet together. Not just to say, hey, let's get together so we can be real. Like, I don't know. Not too many guys are running for that opportunity, right? I can't wait to just empty out my dirty laundry to all these other guys so they can make me feel 1 inch tall. That is not always going to be a good starting point. So think about what you could work on together, whether it's a common goal or maybe it's a project, or it could be a service project. It could be a way to make money together. Think about something that you could come together on that could carry this commitment forward a little bit. And at the same time, you could be intentional about those relationships along the way.
I like it. Like, get together with a couple of your friends and start a podcast.
Yeah, something like that. I heard about some guys that did that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, we should talk about that one.
But related to that in seriousness is what you said is so valuable in terms of getting something that's focused together, right? And so on a practical level, like we meet weekly, right? And sometimes we meet a couple times a week. We have a mastermind that meets weekly. So, I would think like at minimum, you're probably, as you get this thing started with friends or other associates of yours, you got to meet a couple times a month to really get this going and gelling. I remember even so like the mastermind that we're part of with Dan Miller, Jamie was the one who called in a year and a half or two ago and said, "Hey, you need to be doing this." And I remember when I joined, it really took me a few months to just kind of sit back, notice the lay of the land, and kind of understand the ethos, the environment of it, right? But it comes with a guy like Dan Miller who is leading us. That leadership approach and the attitude that goes into that is key, because he doesn't just say, "Hey, let's talk about our vulnerabilities. Let's only focus on our wins." Like, he leads by example and shares some of that himself. And it's not necessarily like the topic of the day, but it creates the environment that I think we're talking about. That environment is hard to nurture, but once you get that, it's so key in terms of growing, making other guys feel like they can be vulnerable. So I think, that's part of it and we do this from a weekly and monthly basis of sharing your wins, but also share your losses. Bring up, maybe one of your calls is only focused on bringing up an area that you suck in and something I want to grow in. And hey guys, help me out here.
Yeah. Well, so I want to say, like, one thing that's been super helpful in my life has been doing that 12-week year with you guys. I did that a couple of times by myself because, I read the book, I listened to a podcast on it, and it was really helpful. I got my big wall in my office where I write down these goals. But meeting with you guys and like us sharing how our week went, like the 3 main goals we're trying to do, how it's been. And then what happens is life comes over, kind of kicks you in the head, and things come up when you're doing stuff together. And so that was just like, it gave me extra strength when my whole family got sick and I didn't get some of those goals that week, and I could just be real about it. But with myself, I was like so judgmental when I couldn't like check those things off this week. I, sending this amount of items to Amazon, or, getting my 10,000 steps in. So, I mean, that's been something really good. If you're in a mastermind group now and you guys are just getting together trying to be real, maybe everybody read the book 12-week year and like set a date and like do like a 90-day sprint and really encourage each other. Just an idea there.
Yeah, that's true. And when you gather people, it doesn't mean you have to be the expert too. It doesn't mean you have to have all that figured out so then you can teach it. I mean, there's value in being just a gatherer, someone that taps other guys on the shoulder and says, "Hey, let's do this thing together." Just something to think about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Someone to facilitate that is key, because I think we talked about it earlier, but there's so many guys that probably yearn for this. Maybe they would never say it, but I think there's people that maybe are aware of groups like this and they want to be part of that. They're just maybe waiting for the invitation. And so, that's something as we kind of wrap up here, but we talk about that commitment and that time dedication. Jamie, you mentioned in terms of a couple resources, check out the 12-week year. It's a great year. Brian Moran, it's an awesome resource that the 3 of us recommend and have gone through, and will continue to go through that.
That's actually how we're doing our podcast, right? We're doing the 12 weeks at a time, setting goals. It's really worked great.
Yeah, it has. And I think another thing we want to share about here, and Michael, I'd like for you to kind of tee this up and explain more in depth, but as entrepreneurial family men, we are passionate about this topic and others that we share about, and really helping lead guys to the next level of looking at the whole person. And so we're going to be opening up an elite mastermind related to this, and it's going to be very, very intentional. So Michael, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So we've all come together with a common interest and a goal, and that is to, as fathers and husbands, we really are passionate about having flexibility in our lives and being able to really live life on our terms. But we also recognize that there's a limit to what us three can offer to ourselves.
Thank you. And we will be putting a link about this in the show notes and on our site. So do visit that. And guys, any last words? This has been a fun conversation on a great topic.
Yeah, don't be a lone wolf, guys. Don't be a bunch of knuckleheads like we used to be.
Yeah, and get over yourself too. You have to if you're going to be authentic with other guys. Just get over yourself. Get over the awkwardness. Guess what? You have some flaws, and that's okay. And the other guys that you're going to get together with, they have some flaws too. Just embrace that and dive right in. You know it's what you need. Go for it.
Awesome. Guys, remember, if you want to go far, go with others. All right, guys, been fun. Until next time.
Yeah, man.
Peace.
Yeah.
See you later.
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast. For show notes, resources, and to connect with us, visit www.entrepreneurialfamilyman.com.